21,000 tokens, one long chatbot answer moves about that. Your question, the conversation it rereads, the reply it writes back. Everyone says AI is basically free. They're wrong. Those tokens cost 13 cents and somebody pays 13 cents for one answer. And the company behind the most famous chatbot on Earth still spent $1.60 to earn each dollar it took in last year. One number explains why they keep going anyway. Don't lose that thread.
Hey, this is Maya. Tokens are the unit this whole industry actually sells. Not answers, not questions. Tokens. A token is a chunk of text, roughly 3/4 of a word, and each one costs somebody a fraction of a cent to move.
Last time we followed the chips and why NVIDIA runs the AI world. I promised you the other half of that invoice. This is it. Same machine, different column.
I'm May, and look at the price list, because it's public. $5 per million tokens going in, $30 per million coming out. Those are the numbers the lab charges any developer who wants exactly the tokens you get for free in the chat window. Which means the chat window has always had a price tag. You've just never been shown it.
Leo here. $20 a month flat. Ask as much as you want. The deal you signed.
The belief underneath that deal is the oldest one in technology. Software scales for free. Write it once, copy it 1 billion times, and the second copy costs nothing. Think of it like a song. Recording it's expensive. Playing it again is basically free. Most people carry that version around about AI, and it's wrong in one very specific way.
Careful, wrong how. The trend says compute gets cheaper year on year.
Take a song. Once it exists, the copy is free. Now take an AI answer. Every copy is a fresh computation. The machine builds your reply from nothing, word by word, on hardware somebody's renting by the second. That isn't a copy, that's a meter running.
Somebody in the studio just typed the question I was hoping nobody would ask. If it costs them money every time I ask something, why is it free for me? The whole episode, in one line. Short version, somebody's paying. It just isn't you.
A meter. May, that word's doing enormous work. There's a real meter, it's spinning right now, and it runs on hardware you can put an exact dollar figure on. Once you see the meter, the rest of this gets uncomfortable quickly. GPU seconds. There's the meter. Every answer you've ever been given was built by a chip doing arithmetic for some number of seconds, and somebody paid for those seconds.
Renting one of those chips runs roughly $2 to $3 an hour from the discount clouds, and $6 to $11 on the big ones, and the newest ones cost more than that. Run the numbers on it. $2 an hour is about 1/20th of a cent every second the chip is thinking for you.
Every answer is computed from scratch. No cache, no copy. Fresh math, every time.
Hold on. Why is it even called a token? A token sounds like something you put in an arcade machine.
Because that's very close to what it is. A token is a chunk you feed the machine to make it go. It's the same shape as a subway token, worthless in your pocket, useless outside the turnstile, and the only thing the turnstile accepts.
Coin in, ride out. There's the bill. 21,000 coins per answer.
Let's walk the whole chain. You type. Your words become tokens. Those tokens go in, and the model rereads the entire conversation, not just your last line, the whole thing. Then the chips do the arithmetic, and that's the GPU seconds. Then it writes the reply back to you one token at a time. And at the end of that chain, seconds turn into cents.
That third step is the one that gets people. The long chat rereads the whole history every time. Your 40th message isn't one message. It's 40 messages, read again from the top, and then answered.
Look at the price list again. $5 in, $30 out. Writing costs 6 times what reading costs. Because writing is the part where the chip has to run the entire model again for each token it.
May, stop there. It's a rounding error. Fractions of a cent.
Fair. But let me land the number first, then you can hate it. 13 cents for one long answer, at the price the lab itself charges. That's not a rounding error. That's 0.2% of somebody's entire monthly subscription for one question.
150 long answers, and the subscription is gone. Watch. 13 cents times 150, call it $20, $19.50 exactly. And 150 long answers in a month is a slow Tuesday for a heavy user.
13 cents sounds like nothing until you price it in something you actually buy. It's an ink cartridge for one of my fountain pens every 3 questions, and I notice when that box runs empty. And the heavy user is the exact person this product is built to create. So, what happens when the thing you sell flat is the thing people use most? Real quick, because this next part matters to you. If any of this is helping, tap that like button, then hit subscribe and ring the bell so the next one finds you. Both are free and take about a second, but they tell the algorithm to show this to one more person who needs it.
You lose money. That's what happens. 13 cents an answer at list price, and the receipt behind it's not complicated at all.
10 cents to read your chat. 3 cents to write the reply. 13.
List price isn't the lab's own cost. It's what the lab charges a developer for the same tokens, and a price you charge other people has margin inside it. So treat 13 cents as a ceiling, never a floor. Their real cost is lower, and nobody outside that building knows by how much. Layla, you live inside this math.
Glad to. So short answer, yes, the list price is a ceiling and it's a generous one. The serving side is widely believed to carry margin, though nobody outside that building can prove the number. What that price doesn't carry is the training bill, and the training bill is the part people keep.
Wait, training is a separate bill?
Completely separate. Serving you is the electricity bill. Training the next model is the factory. One of them is cents per answer. The other is a number with a B in front of it, spent years before a single customer sees anything.
So the part that costs cents is serving me, and the part that costs billions is the run where they actually build the
Training run. The phrase is training run.
training run. Thank you. So the chat window could be genuinely profitable, and the company's still deep underwater.
Both, routinely. The serving math I know cold. Where it goes past me is what the next model turns out to be worth once it lands.
And what does that depend on?
Exactly one thing, whether anybody still pays a premium for the best model. That's a bet on the future, and I wouldn't pretend to price it. You 3 see the money side better than I do, so I'll let you fight about it. Good luck.
Nobody says this one plainly, so I will. How much does one ChatGPT answer actually cost the company that runs it? Somebody give me the number.
Put it on a receipt then. 20,000 tokens go in. Your question plus the entire conversation it rereads before it can answer. At $5 per million, 10 cents.
1,000 tokens come back out. At $30 per million, 3 cents.
13 cents. The cold fact is that's one answer, and you're paying $20 for the whole month. That's one more click of the turnstile, and the turnstile doesn't care that you already paid.
And this isn't a secret anybody is hiding. In January of 2025, the chief executive of the biggest lab posted, in public, that they were losing money on their $200 a month tier because people were using it more than the company expected.
$20 once a month. On a card you forgot you linked. 150 answers. May, you pulled the actual figures out of the biggest lab. Not the press release, the ledger. What did the year look like?
$13.1 billion of revenue, $20.9 billion of operating loss. Same year, 2025. And I want to be careful with how I hand you those. They're reported from internal documents, not an audited public filing, so hold them a little loosely. They're also the clearest look anybody outside that building has ever had.
$34 billion of total costs, against 13 coming in. Think of it like a restaurant that sells you a $40 steak and spends $104 cooking it. Now imagine the restaurant is thrilled about this and opening more locations.
Look at where the 34 billion actually went, because the biggest slice isn't the chat window at all. Research and development, $19.2 billion, and that's where training the next model lives. Serving costs, the part that actually answers you, $7.5 billion. Sales and marketing, $5.7. Everything else, about $1.5.
$7.5 billion just to answer people. Serving bill planet scale.
Now the number that moved me. In 2024, $2.37 spent to earn a single dollar. In 2025, $1.60. The whole is enormous, and it's
Erica, that's just accounting. Growth companies lose money on purpose.
they do, and the ratio agrees with you. The loss is shrinking per dollar earned. 237 down to 160 in a single year. But it's still a loss on every dollar. I mean, a shrinking loss, but a loss at a scale no software company has ever run. The ledger says losing money on purpose is a strategy, not the same thing as making money.
Fine. The ratio moved.
The losses are the plan, not the accident. Hold that number, $1.60. I'll show you where every cent lands, and the last stop isn't a computer.
And there's an obvious fix that everybody reaches for. Why don't they just raise the price to what it actually costs? The answer is that the first lab to do that hands its users to the lab that doesn't, which makes it a race. And races get expensive before they get profitable.
You know the case that comes up every time somebody wires one of these into a real product?
The recipe app one? Go.
Solo developer, call her Priya. She bolts a chatbot into her recipe app, 3,000-ish users, and she makes the feature free, obviously, because everybody else's is free.
Free. So she is paying for other people to be free.
3,000 users, one long question each. At 13 cents an answer, $390 in a month, on an app that earns her almost nothing. It lands on the whatever they call it, the cost of revenue line, that one. She did nothing wrong. She found out what tokens cost.
That's the same shape as the whole industry, just with the zeros filed off. Everybody in this business is subsidizing the answer and hoping the subsidy is temporary.
Everything so far is one company's ledger. Where that money goes next is where it turns into your electricity bill.
Okay, I have to say it. Every dollar we've argued about lands in 5 places. Only 5.
Follow it. Investors, labs, chip makers, data centers, the power grid, that's the circuit.
$75.2 billion. NVIDIA's data center revenue, 1 quarter, ended in April.
Up 92% from a year earlier. That's the chip hop, and it's the fattest one on the board.
The 4 big clouds have guided to more than $700 billion in capital spending this year. Guidance, not a receipt.
Which buys concrete, steel, land, cooling. My twin sister is a structural engineer, and she'd tell you the chips make the headline and the building makes the bill.
Abilene, Texas, 8 buildings planned, hundreds of thousands of chips on one network.
Ground broke on it in 2024. The first 2 buildings were live inside a year.
Every hop takes a margin. Investors want a return. The chip makers take theirs. And the labs are
Last in line. They eat the loss.
they eat it. Which is exactly why the loss ledger looks the way it looks.
The last invoice isn't a chip at all, it's the grid.
Power contracts, substations, transmission, the stuff that takes a decade to build.
And I'd put real money on this. Whoever locks up the power locks up the...
Leo, you've been locking down one guitar song for 8 months.
9 months. And the grid takes 10 years. My point stands.
A decade. There's the real constraint, not chips, time, and power.
There's the $1.60 Leo told us to hold. Every cent lands on this board. Last stop, a power line.
So let's just say it plainly. If the labs lose money on every answer, who is actually paying for my free chatbot?
Investors. Today it's investors, venture money and cloud money spent years ahead of revenue.
Sure, but who pays when they stop?
That's the question this entire industry is built on, and the honest answer is that nobody.
Nobody knows. That's the honest answer, and it's the whole reason this is interesting. Nobody knows who pays when the money stops, and they're all spending anyway because of one bet. Winner take most. Take the strongest version of that bet, because it's not an irrational bet. If one lab's model is meaningfully better, people use it. Using it produces the conversations that make the next one better. The switching cost climbs, the enterprise contracts land, and those contracts pay real money on real invoices. Win the frontier, and you keep the users, the data, and the revenue. Come second, and you're selling a commodity that somebody in Hangzhou will sell for 1/100th of your price.
The cold fact is the other side of that bet is just as strong. Spending is outrunning revenue. More than $700 billion in guided cloud capital spending this year. Against AI revenues you can still count in tens of billions. You don't get to a ratio like that by being early. You get there by being certain. And nobody has been certain of anything in this field for longer than about 6 months.
Both things are true, and I'm not dodging. Inside one boundary, the spending is completely rational. If the frontier keeps mattering, the winner really does take most, and this is the cheapest land grab in history. Outside it, if good enough gets cheap enough, the same money bought the most expensive commodity anyone ever bought. Nobody in this room knows which.
That number Erica held back at the very top, this is it. The price of a fixed level of AI performance is collapsing, say the median.
50 times cheaper per year, median, measured by Epoch AI across 6 benchmarks, with a spread from 9 times a year at the slow end to 900 at the fast end. The same answer that cost you $1 last year costs a couple of cents this year. That's the fastest price collapse in the history of computing, and it's why nobody dares stand still. Standing still is the only guaranteed loss. That's what happens when the frontier gets cheaper. Now wait until you hear what happens when the frontier stops being the point.
Think of it like 2 kitchens cooking the same dish. The frontier one. Best answers today, $5 in and $30 out per million tokens and expensive to serve. The budget one. 14 cents in, 28 cents out, fine for most asks and not the frontier. Same question. Roughly 100 times apart on the way out.
Hangzhou. That's where the cheap one comes from, not a garage, a serious lab, and I'd put real money on the frontier anyway. Best model wins. The trend says it always has.
Most of what people actually ask a chatbot isn't frontier work, Leo. It's a rewrite, a summary, a recipe, a polite email you didn't want to write.
28 cents. Okay. If it can write my grocery list, I'm not paying $30 a million to have the list written beautifully. Taking that one on the chin.
Both bets are live, and this is the part nobody wants to hear. It's the same pot of money, one pot. If the frontier keeps mattering, the spenders look like geniuses. If cheap catches up, the spenders bought the world's most expensive commodity. And there's no third answer available today, no matter who is shouting.
50 times cheaper, every year. A clock all of them are running against. Maya, you keep dragging this back to real people. Strip out the billions. What does a person actually feel?
You pay with money, or you pay with data. There's no third door. And almost nobody chose which one they were walking through, which is the part that bothers me.
Free tiers are subsidized. Somebody wrote a check. It just wasn't you.
Think of it like a layaway plan, the old kind. You walk into a store, you can't pay the whole price today, so you put something down every week and the store holds the goods in the back until you've finished paying. The free tier is the layaway counter. Your conversations are the weekly deposit, and the finished model in the back room is the thing on hold. Every question you type is another payment into it.
Okay, but what's on layaway when the store never hands you anything? One catch, and it's worth saying plainly. Unlike real layaway, you never collect. The deposits build somebody else's product, and it ships whether you come back or not.
Plainly then, on the consumer tiers of the biggest chatbot, the setting called Improve Model for Everyone is switched on by default, which means your conversations are used to train the models unless you go and turn it off. There's your trade. Nobody hid it. Nobody announced it either.
Settings, data controls, one toggle. It takes about 40 seconds, and it...
Leo, stop right there. That one is my lane, because the toggle isn't the point. The point is that it was on, and you didn't choose it. Turn it off, leave it on. I genuinely don't mind. Just make it a decision instead of a default. And if you're on a business or enterprise account, or you're building on the developer interface, your data isn't used for training by default at all. Different tier, different deal, and almost nobody knows that either.
So the move is cancel the subscription and use the free one?
Two ways to answer that, and the first is to fix the question. The real question isn't which tier to pay for. It's what you're paying with. On the free tier, you aren't paying nothing. You're paying with your conversations. I won't tell anybody which to choose. There are only two currencies, and one gets spent whether you notice or not.
Every question is one more click of the turnstile. Somebody is always paying for the click.
Look at what actually changes for you over the next year, because this is the practical part. Prices will keep splitting into more tiers, because the labs have to charge heavy users more without frightening off the light ones. $8, $20, $200, and whatever comes after that. Free tiers will get quietly pushed toward the cheaper models, because that's exactly where the cost collapses fastest. And here's the good news nobody says out loud, so I'll bridge the two for you. The thing you're getting for $20 this year would have been unaffordable to run 2 years ago, and the price of that same quality is still falling. The loss and the bargain are the same fact, seen from two ends of the same wire.
Walk away with this. There's no free answer anywhere in this system, only a bill you were never shown. So is all of it a bubble? Real question, real history behind it, and it deserves an hour rather than a sentence of mine. Next time we hold it up against the .com crash and see what rhymes. One thing you're walking out with. Go. Mine. There's no free answer. There's a meter on every reply, and right now investors feed it.
Mine is smaller and more useful. The next time your chat feels sluggish or your limits tighten, that's not the machine being rude to you. That's 13 cents an answer meeting a $20 subscription, and you now know exactly what you're looking at. Send this to the person in your life who still thinks the free one is free.
Still chewing on the one we didn't settle. Next time, the .com crash. And I'd put real money on one of you changing your mind.
Tonight, do one thing. Open your chatbot settings, find data controls, and look at whether Improve Model for Everyone is on. That toggle is the $20 decision you never got asked about.
There's the episode. If following the money like this is what you want more of, hit like and subscribe. It's genuinely what tells us to keep building the series out. And here's the one only you can answer. Would you pay more for AI if it meant your chats were never used for training? Put a dollar figure in the comments, not just yes or no. Follow the meter, not the marketing. I'm Professor Erica. Thanks for spending your time with us, and we'll see you next time. Big thanks for sticking with me all the way to the end. Professor Erica here. See you very soon.